I'm Sayakat Cosplay and welcome to my channel. Today is the second part of the Learn to Sew with Sayakat video series. Today we are talking all about fabric and thread, because thread is also important. So you have all your tools. Now what? Well, we have to pick out some fabric, pick out a pattern, make a pattern, and sew something. So picking out fabric for your project is a really important part of getting to your final garment or costume. If you're watching and following along and you have any additional questions that you'd like to ask, please leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like button and also maybe that subscribe button as well. Okay, so you've got all your materials, your equipment, your needles, pins, you know what you want to make, but you don't know what to make it out of. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. First off, I'm going to be talking about thread. I don't see often a lot of videos or information about thread, and I've had to learn a lot of this on my own. I'm pretty much completely self-taught, so I'm going to impart what I know, hopefully to help you learn to sew and learn to sew better than I do, and to not make as many mistakes. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but hopefully you will avoid some of the frustrations that I had when I was learning. Hello and welcome to close-up camera. These are just some examples of thread that I have in my collection. These are all-purpose thread, meaning they can be used for a variety of purposes. First off, low-quality thread can really muck up a project and make everything way more frustrating than it needs to be. If you're starting off, there's a couple of brands that I would recommend buying from. One is Coats & Clark. This is a pretty good brand. It's found in every Joann's and is a good place to start with thread. The other one is Gutermann's. This is also a really good thread brand. You can also find it in Joann's. This is a good place to start as well. If you're looking for thread, be wary of buying thread off of Amazon or sites like Wish or AliExpress. Those threads can be not the highest quality. They can be weak, and if you have weak thread, it's prone to breaking. And when thread breaks, it's never a fun time. So generally brands like Coats & Clark and Gutermann's are good. They're very reliable. There's other ones too that I just can't think of them off the top of my head because most of the thread that I have is either Coats & Clark or Gutermann's. So there's different types of thread. So this is all-purpose thread, which means it's a polyester based thread. This actually tells you it's 100% polyester. You can get thread in polyester, cotton, silk, rayon. There's different types of thread for different applications. Most of the thread that I have is polyester thread. Most of the thread that I have is all-purpose. But I do have some heavy-duty thread. I do have some embroidery thread. I do have some metallic thread or silky thread. So their fiber content is going to vary, and how thick the thread is going to vary. When you're starting out, getting a good selection of all-purpose thread is really super helpful. You can also get things such as pre-cut thread, pre-waxed thread, other types of thread, silk thread, cotton thread. So there's tons of different types of threads out there for different purposes, but having just some all-purpose thread to start is a great place to start from. I'm not a super thread junkie, so I don't have a ton of diversity in my thread collection in terms of fiber type, but believe me, there's a ton of stuff out there and you can go and find all kinds of different stuff. So this is a good place to start, and from there the world's your oyster. All right, moving on to fabrics. Hello and welcome to, I have a lot of swatches. So I'm going to be using my swatches and my swatch collection. This is not all of them. to show you differences in fabrics and what the different major types of fabrics are and how to differentiate between them and how to pick what you need for your project. First off, fabrics can be divided by fiber type and by weave. So I'm going to show you how that works and what that is. So in terms of fiber, there's a major difference between natural fibers and synthetic fibers. This is cotton. This is peach skin, which is a synthetic fiber. So when talking about fiber types, there are two major classifications of fiber types, natural and synthetic. Natural fiber types can include things like cotton, flax, silk, wool, bamboo. Synthetic types can include things like polyester, rayon, elastane, nylon, spandex, acrylic. There's a ton of synthetic fiber types. Different fibers have different properties and will behave differently, so choosing your fiber type as well as weave is important when making garments. Things like natural fibers are going to breathe better than synthetic fibers, but natural fibers are sometimes going to be more expensive than synthetic fibers are. So figuring out what you need for your project, balancing your costume needs with budget is really important. So figuring out if you want a natural fiber or a synthetic fiber is going to be important for when you make a garment. Now, in addition to a fiber type, the next thing you have to consider is weave. The major types of weave are woven, knit, and felted. Woven fabric are made by interweaving threads, basically crisscrossing threads at right angles to make a fabric. Knitted fabrics are made by continuously looping a single thread together. This is a knit. This is made by looping threads together and over each other. And then felt is made by mashing fibers together, basically tangling them up and making them knot together to make a fabric. There's different ways to weave and knit, and different weights of threads and fibers, things like different density, thread count. So you can get things like a cotton gauze, which is a very light fabric, or things like silk du peony, which is much heavier and thicker than gauze, or you can get things like silk charmeuse, which are much lighter and more delicate than a du peony. So depending on how you knit things or how you weave things, that is going to make the fabric have different properties. The basic weaves for woven fabric are plain, twill, and satin. So this, for example, this is a charmeuse. This is a satin weave. This is a twill. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is a flannel. It's a synthetic flannel. But the twill weave gives it a kind of ribbed texture and ribbed appearance to the fabric. This flannel is a plain weave, so it does not have any ribbed texture and is not shiny. So those are the basic weaves of woven fabric. You can vary these weaves quite a bit to get a bunch of different types of weaves. There's like 20 or so different types of weaves of woven fabric. Maybe not quite that many, I'm not sure. I just know there's a lot. Knit fabrics, on the other hand, because it's a continuous looped thread, unlike woven fabrics, are generally really stretchy. So this has 4-way stretch, so depending on how it's knit and what it's knit with, it's going to be more or less stretchy. So depending on what the fiber is and the type of knit, it can be more or less stretchy. So this is a basic jersey knit. So that's one of the basic knits. But there are other knits such as rib interlock and French terry, to name a few. So like woven fabrics, there's different ways to knit knitted fabrics. So there's many different types of knits to choose from. Felt is all pretty much felt. It's gonna be rarely non-stretch. Felting is basically the same process no matter what you're felting, if it's wool or acrylic. So I'm not gonna talk too much about felting, but know that that is a fabric type and a fabric choice. So your fabrics are classified by fiber and weave type. Great, awesome. How does this help me? What does this mean? Well, depending on what you are doing, this background knowledge can be very helpful in figuring out what type of fabric you will need for a project. So you need something stretchy. Do you need a knit? Do you need a spandex? What kind of fiber do you want? That's going to help you pick your fabric for your project. Say you need something with a lot of structure and you're going to want it to be close to the body and you're going to be wearing it a lot. You probably want a natural fiber and a heavier woven fabric with no stretch. So knowing what these types of fibers are, what these weaves are, can really help with reading and understanding patterns and understanding garments and knowing what you're going to want in your costume. Reading patterns is going to be a future video, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Do you like my little hand gestures for this part of the video? I don't know, maybe. So those are the basics of thread and fabric. I hope you found today's video helpful. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions about things that I've talked about in this video, don't forget to leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.